Hello and welcome to Two Girls in a Pod. I'm Sharon.
I'm Christy.
Hope all of you are doing well. We took a week off, but every once in a while we have to do a little regroup or stuff gets in the way. We get a little busy, but we are going to do our best to stay on task and to stay putting out our podcast weekly. We really do appreciate all of you who continue to support us. We are tremendously grateful for that.
Yes, absolutely.
As we always talk, Christy and I always having these conversations and stuff. And, one of the things we kind of noticed is we talk about things like gratitude and not listening to those voices, of other people's opinions and just the whole gamut of things, anxiety, the mental health piece of it, how to be mentally strong, how to be your authentic self, all of those things. But, we realize that we talk about these things, but we've never really talked about why they became important to us.
Right.
And I think we'll start with the gratitude one. It was a time in our life when, in 2010, neither one of us had a job. And we'd apply for jobs, and oh my goodness, the amount of rejection letters, you're overqualified, and I didn't even care. We just wanted a job. We didn't care if it was in the local gas station. We did not care.
No, and it was for a few months. So it was getting to where that it was really putting us in a bind, and there was a lot of pressure.
A lot of stress, a lot of anxiety at that. We were so grateful to my parents who would help us out, but we also didn't want to go. They were on a fixed income. It wasn't about that. And I don't know if that was pride I don't think it was pride. I really think it was, you don't want to take advantage of people that you love and things like that. And, your mom helped us out a little bit too. And we just didn't share with a lot of people that we were struggling.
Yeah. Except our good neighbor.
June. Oh my goodness. Because, sometimes she was kind of in the same boat because her job didn't pay a lot of money. She had 2 daughters at home. It was a struggle for her as well.
A single mom. And yeah, it was rough.
We would rely on each other, and I remember her dad taking her some stuff from a farmer, and then June would go and split it up. So we got a cabbage, she got a cabbage, or, whatever. And just those moments and realizing how important and grateful we were for that. But we didn't understand the value of gratitude, I think is more what it is. You know what I mean?
I think that we grew up, was grateful, but...
Yes, but you didn't articulate it maybe.
No, and I think that during that whole time began a whole entire shift of our understanding of gratitude and how it plays out in your life and what it brought to our life by switching our thinking around gratitude.
Because we were kind of in a funk, and so it was like, you don't have a job, so you don't know if it's Monday, Tuesday. You just don't know. And you kind of start sleeping in, but then you start feeling yuck. Mm-hmm. It's like you don't feel a purpose. And so we made a decision that we talked to you about the importance of doing an action. And we learned that too, because one of the things we did was we said we can't just lay around.
Right.
So we would get up and we would walk.
Yeah. We started coming up with, more of a regimen for ourselves where that we were getting out and being more active. We just started even walking around town. So we weren't using gas and, things like that.
But it was really that thing that was really interesting is because that actually taught us the value of, and even when I'm working with clients, if you don't have a schedule or a purpose, you get stuck and things become really mundane. And we'd get up in the morning, we'd take our walk, and one day we're walking and, of course, like we said, we had no money. When we said zero money, we're not talking about savings or this, that, or that. No, because we had to use a lot of that to keep our house and keep our cars and phone and everything else you have to keep going without any income coming in.
Yeah. And that taught us a lot about communication because we had to stay in constant contact with creditors and things like that to try to be able to maintain what we were going through and still come away with anything.
Exactly. And, we didn't qualify for any of the benefit stuff.
Yeah.
So it was just a really difficult time for us. And I remember we started with gratitude because we started reading The Secret.
Yeah, we took a lot of our time, in setting up this regimen. We also set aside time that we were reading.
We'd read to each other, and we started reading The Secret to each other. And then we would talk about it. And we would talk about, this gratitude thing feeling it is one thing, but expressing it's something else. To feel gratitude, but nobody knows you feel gratitude. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Well, and realizing, it helped me to realize how many things we were actually still taking for granted. Even though we had a lot of gratitude for what was given to us, whether it be from our neighbor June sharing with us or whatever, there was always gratitude for things like that. But there were so many things that we didn't even realize that we were overlooking, basically.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's where it really started. And, we always talk about communication. Well, I mean, we've always talked. Mm-hmm. We've always had, I feel like, a really amazing friendship. But it was even at that time, we started talking even more.
Yes.
Because we started reading more books to each other. We started formulating ideas and plans, what were we willing to do? What were we not willing to do? All those different things that go on.
And you realize how empowering that is to even just start taking action where you can. Even though we were not in control of the situation as far as the employment, we were putting in the applications and all of that stuff. But we started looking at what we could do. And that was to start reading and see about developing new ideas, like you said, and also using it to help our bodies to be healthier and things like that.
And I guess the thing we have to mention is that when we didn't have a job, we moved to Florida.
We were seeking whatever, to try and make things work. And we did decide
we moved to Florida. I worked on getting my provisional license there. Your mom and brother moved with us, and we were there for 3 months.
Yes.
One of the things is that Florida's insurance is extremely high.
Mm-hmm. There were a few hoops for your licensure.
I could live with all of that, but what could we not live with?
So that was quite an experience. We rented an apartment there that, from the outside looked really nice.
We're in Orlando.
Nice grounds and everything. It was beautiful. And then we got in there and cockroaches galore.
And we were on first name basis with our Orkin.
Yeah. And he was finally to the point that I can't come in here and spray anymore because it's getting to toxic levels for you.
It's going to kill you and the cockroaches are still going to live, basically.
Yeah. But he's like, the neighbors, that's your problem. I was like, okay, great.
And it was like, oh my God, we're putting so much into this. So we still had our home, of course, in Del Norte. So we made the decision to move back. Your mom moved back to Alabama. We moved to...
Well, not only that, when you were looking at jobs there, it was some of the areas were kind of high crime, and you were like, what are you going to be dealing with and all of that. So we were leery of that too.
But I wanted to do therapeutically, so it wasn't, and so I was, I don't know if I want to compromise on that. Anyway, we moved back, and that's when we actually started getting into gratitude, because that's when we didn't have a schedule. We didn't have anything. And like I said, and then you start getting, almost depressed, I guess, or not even depressed, but it's kind of like disheartened because you put out all these applications and you constantly get that thing of you're overqualified, or
the rejections, when they start to mount up, you start to feel a little defeated.
But even through all that, once we started shifting that whole thought process, it was an amazing time for us, even though it stopped being a stressful time in a way.
Yeah, because we totally, started shifting our focus to what we were reading and getting into that and understanding that there were certain things that we could take action on.
One of the things I was grateful for is that I really did get to spend more time with my parents, which was nice. I could go over there, help them out and do some stuff, that they needed done. Or I started looking more towards some of the positive things that were going on with us. You know what I mean? And I had time to take care of my yard, which my yard is very important to me. We started hanging out there more.
Well, like I say, I started getting healthier. We started walking.
Yes. And so things started to shift for us. And so we continued with this gratitude, and we practice it even today. Let's fast forward now 13 years later.
But pause, because when we just first started doing this, and we're reading The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, by the way, it was interesting because we started, really trying to implement some of those affirmations that they talk about in the book and things started to gradually change. And one of the things I remember is us being out walking and looking down, crossing the street and finding $20 right in the road. Mm-hmm. just little things like that started to appear.
And, when you have no money, $20 is a lot.
That's a big deal.
So what did we go buy?
I don't even remember.
Cup of soup.
Oh, yeah. We lived on cup of soup.
They were 3 for 99 cents.
Right.
And that was quite a bit of food.
Yeah.
I am so grateful for the cup of soup, but I cannot eat cup of soup now. We ate a lot of it. And, I sit here and think now, they're like, oh my God, I'm so dumb. We could have gone and shopped at my parents' house at any time. My parents always had an abundance of food, and sometimes we did.
They did help us out in many ways, even just by feeding us when we'd go over for meals.
But I got to tell you, my parents were so funny. If my mom got up to go to the bathroom, my dad would tell me, Hita, go get my billfold. And I would be there like, okay. And here he'd be giving me money. It's not much, so here's a 20. And then like my dad would go outside and my mom would come over, Hita, come here and give me $20, but don't tell your dad. So it was so cute. They could have just given me the 40 together and I was happy. But, they knew that I needed to have gas and stuff.
Yeah.
So I could go see them. I mean, I guess I could walk the 5 miles, but, I wasn't quite there yet. But that's something that was really important for us. And even through that, we started looking more at how do you follow your dreams?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was really grateful because a friend, Heather, called me and said, hey, they're hiring for MFLACs. Do you want to do that, which is Military Family Life Counselor? I said, I'm not sure what that is, but sure. So I applied there and I had applied other places. And then I get 3 phone calls, 3 job offers. And I think one was Pueblo, Colorado Springs, and Denver. And I sat there and I said, well, what would I like to do? And I thought, well, you know what? I really like my friend Heather. So I'm going to do that. Not that I would see her because as MFLACs, we moved around, but
which was kind of a blessing within itself because they took care of our place to stay. So we didn't have to actually make a concrete decision about moving somewhere or that. And we weren't putting out expense for another place to live. So it was great.
It worked perfectly because we just basically lived in a hotel for the 3 months. And then every 3 months, we moved a new rotation. And that was really great. But I thought, I really love being a therapist. We talk about follow your dreams.
Yeah.
Do that. And we had talked about it. And we had talked about wanting to have our private practice. And it was like, are we settling?
Mm-hmm.
Even some of the people I would work with would tell me, you're so much more of a therapist. Because the Military Family Life Counselor, it's not actually therapeutic in that same way. So you do a lot of consultation. You kind of just are helping with behaviors. So I was working with kids a lot. And so for me, it was like, and I would tell you, I like it, but it doesn't fill me up in the same way.
Well, like you mentioned, you weren't really doing therapy and that. Then the next opportunity comes available.
Here comes Heather again.
Yeah.
Heather stops being an MFLAC and she goes with this company and she said, hey, they're hiring. So I went in, got the job. So Heather and I are back again working together. That was such a neat experience because, not only had I met Sylvia as an MFLAC, which was a blessing in a way that we just didn't know at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was Kathy Weber, who was an MFLAC. I had heard about her. She had heard about me, but we really hadn't met a lot, because she did adult. So when I went over to this next company, Sylvia was there too. So for me, it was like, oh my God, this is so great. Then in comes Kathy G. And met her. And once again, we didn't know what that was going to look like either.
Mm-hmm.
But we sat down and we talked. And, we came to the decision in 2014 that we really wanted to have that private practice. Yeah. We really, really wanted it. It was a dream that we had. And it was like, how do we make that come to be?
And the cool thing is that we had to trust in the process. And you had to have that position that you did to make the connections that you needed to move on to the next place, the next level up, because that's what we've been doing every time. I feel like leveling up a little bit each time.
And so when we're talking even on the podcast and we're telling people follow your dreams, have a goal, build those relationships, pay it forward. These are things that we learned as we've been on this journey.
Yeah, exactly.
I went and I was talking to Heather and I said, I really want to do private practice. She goes, well, why don't you do it on the days that, I said, I didn't work Mondays or something. And so I went down there, and Heather and Sylvia and Kathy Weber shared an office. And I said, well, can I have a space for a day? And they're like, sure. And they opened that up to me. And so I started there, and then came the hole in the wall, which was true because we thought we had a lease there. And then the next thing I know, Sylvia's calling me saying, they're putting a hole in the wall. What's going on here? And then, no, they had rented it out to somebody else and were doing construction on it. And here we were trying to do therapy.
Yeah, they were going to remodel the space, and the lease was going to somebody else, and we were just kind of being pushed out. So we had to scramble for another location.
But it was better for us because then the next location we got, we had more space. It was more hours. We weren't sharing it. It was a better thing then. And then that's when we brought Kathy G in, and we formed this wonderful team. It really is an A team. But once again, it was about connections. It was about communication. It was about creating and seeing opportunity.
Yes. And I think we were able to see opportunity because we had switched in our mind to gratitude. I really feel like that was the liftoff for us in all of that. And that's, like I said, when enabled us to be able to see when to make those moves and
to see opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with you. I think it really expanded something in us. Not only I feel like as individuals, but I think it really expanded and helped in our relationship in a different way as well, because we had a greater appreciation for some things.
Mm-hmm. And I really feel like that's what it takes is you get so fixated sometimes on the problem. You know, we were looking at the unemployment, and then you get stuck. You feel like you're stifled because you aren't able to see other things.
Yeah, and you're there like, oh man, you start thinking about your lack of money. When you shift your focus to that, you're not shifting your focus to, oh my God, you still have a home.
Well, and it doesn't do anything to shift your focus to that because you don't have, that is not a solution. You're just fixated on the problem.
Absolutely. And some of it was anxiety provoking, and we had to learn to navigate that as well.
Yeah.
You know, for me, they're like, okay, you have the skills, use them kind of thing. You know, walking was really great for us, really having those relationships and knowing that we had support.
Yes.
Was Sandra has always been, from the time of our friendship, just so supportive. Mm-hmm. And that was important, you know, to have those connections.
Absolutely. Because when we were going through that whole process of where should we move or what should we do, we need to find a job. If it's not going to happen here in Del Norte, then it has to happen somewhere else. Even during that time, actually, before we went to Florida, we went up to Grand Junction and were there for a few months. And during that time, trying to make that move, it was our dear friend Sandra that helped us with that move in the process. So yes, those connections are so valuable.
Yeah. I still feel a little bad about that because unfortunately I got a migraine. And so Christy and Sandra unloaded the truck. I just could not. I was just sick.
Yes. And it was in the dark to the storage unit.
But you know, that's what I mean. When you work on those relationships are there for you and you get to be there for them.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about this, a lot of the stuff we talk about is because of the experiences that we have had. You know, we often talk about those social constructs as well. And we all fall into them. That thing of, oh, you're overeducated. What does that even mean? How can you be overeducated for a job? Do you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it becomes that social construct. Well, I'm not going to hire you because you've got that master's, so you're not going to really stay here. Look, dude, I want to keep my house.
Right.
But people, once again, fall into that construct or that business model or whatever you want to call it. And then people who are really just, they're like, I just need a job.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn that when that social construct works against you, what can you do later on in life to get out of those social constructs?
Exactly. And I think that you have to realize that all of it, you know, we talk about the baby steps. They add up to big things, but it takes time and it takes going through that process to be able to come to that place. And yeah, I mean, I feel like that we're in such a much better place today, But it was a process and still is. I think people always think of everything having a beginning and an end, but it's not that way. I mean, it's sort of everything is like maintenance and practice, you know? I mean, it just continues on. You don't get to a certain age in life and never need sleep again. That is a practice you will continue your whole life.
Exactly. And I think that's really a fascinating thing, because I think what happens is people do not understand. And I always tell my clients, your life is your journey, and you're on this journey until the moment you stop, your last breath. That's when the journey ends. I said, and so, what you do on that journey is about growth, and you don't stop growing at 20, 40, 60, whatever. Your growth stops the moment you stop breathing, because we're always evolving in some way.
Yes.
Even sometimes when we don't realize we're evolving, there are things taking place.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't have an awareness to it. We talk about the importance of something being in our awareness. When we started reading the Secret, that became part of our awareness. Mm-hmm. And then that became part of our practice.
Yes. Even
meditation and quieting the mind became part of our practice. Right. And when I say practice, because I don't know, I know I haven't mastered it.
Certainly not. I mean, and we talk about all the time about having balance and things like that. That is one of the most biggest struggles to me, is how do you do that? How do you find the balance? And so that it's a continued journey, and it is about the journey. It's not so much about the destination. I mean, that may sound cliche, but I think that people really have to look at that and understand it's this moment right now that means the most.
And I think, once again, that's another thing that we talk about. And, we're taught so much of the time about think of your future. Think of your future.
Yeah, another construct.
Save for your future. Do all this for your future. Well, if you're doing all that, what are you doing in the present moment?
Right.
You're not living because you're so busy thinking about the future.
You're so busy suffering what you think might happen, or...
Exactly. It ain't even happened yet.
Yeah.
Save for the future. And I always love this when a parent says to their kid, get their birthday money, whatever, why are you spending on foolishness? They're like, they're living in the moment, man. That what might be foolish to you as an adult, that's really important to them. And it's in the moment. They're enjoying it in that moment. I think when people get to be adults, and that same thing of, oh gosh, you got to go to college, you got to go do this. And all this pressure. And when I'm working with kids, it's like, oh my God, they're talking to me about college. I don't even know what I'm going to wear next week. It's true. So it's one of those things and I get planning, mm-hmm. but I think that people take planning and then it's like, it turns into almost a fear of what's coming, mm-hmm. and not appreciating what's going on right now.
Well, because you can't plan for every variable either.
Absolutely.
And we're going along and we're living and hopefully enjoying at the same time. And yeah, we have to, like I say, stay in the moment.
Well, and I tell people, the thing is like sometimes, you are going along all fat, dumb, and happy, and wham, you get 3 feet from your goal. That's from a movie. But
yeah,
that's the thing. You get 3 feet from your goal, and there's
lights up and hits you in the gut.
Yep. And there you have it. You know what I mean? And it's like, where did that come from? And I tell people, we're always going to have things coming because we do not control those external things. But what we do control is how we respond and react to those external things.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be whack. You get, 3 feet from your goal, you get whacked and you fall to pieces. Or you get 3 feet from your goal, you get whacked and you say, dang, that hurt. Now what do I do? Or whatever it is.
And there's, you try something sometimes and sometimes it doesn't always work out. Just like Florida didn't work out for us. Mm-hmm. We thought, oh, warm climate, we're going to love it, on. And yeah, it just didn't work out that way. It was not what we expected. But that's okay because it wasn't a complete failure. It was a learning experience.
And, one of the things is that we talk about that thing. And, I say I don't know about failure because life is always about practice.
Yeah.
But I also tell my clients, you know what, when we're talking about something and we're talking about a new idea and they'll go use it, whether it's a parent idea, didn't work. They're like, you haven't practiced it yet. if something does not become a part of who we are, a part of our practice, it doesn't solidify with people. Your kids don't believe you. If you try something one and done, they don't believe you. It's after you're being consistent with them that it starts to ring true. It's the same thing. When you're doing something, the more consistent you become. We talk about that. I say, I love the fact that we've been really more consistent with our working out and stuff. And you always tell me consistency. Mm-hmm. And then, unlike today when my day started at 9 and didn't finish till 6, I didn't have the same amount of time to put that consistency in. It doesn't mean I don't get up in between and do steps and do stuff like that. But even remaining consistent with that, I can change myself. I do have the power to do that. But it wouldn't be fair to my clients. So therefore, I've got to still meet those needs because I've committed to this relationship as a therapist with my clients. So there's some of that takes place. But once again, it's when you start something new, it doesn't feel right all the time. And when we first started with gratitude, we fumbled with it a little bit. Mm-hmm. Now you give me a topic and I can give you a gratitude statement because you have to put stuff into a positive way and you can't use negative. Anyway, you can't do all that stuff. So, and now it's such a
natural
thing to us, that I don't even think about it. My client says, "Oh, can I have a gratitude statement about this?" And I'll just rattle it off because it's now our way of life.
Yeah.
Which is really important. And a lot of my clients use gratitude because gratitude, when I tell people, when people say, "Well, how is gratitude therapy?" I say, because it's still part of cognitive behavioral therapy. We're changing the way in which your brain fires.
Yeah.
We're changing the messages that you're giving it. And, the thing is we buy, and we talk about that, the thing of buying into other people's ideas of who we are, whether it's body shape or whatever that is, that buy into it, which is somebody says something, then we take it on once again as our truth. And it's not the truth. It is that, once again, sometimes it's those social constructs that we talk about. Same thing. You're a girl, act as girly as you can. And, that's one of the things that we love about this podcast is because we talked to Erica. She talked about that thing of getting females into sports.
Yeah.
Breaking that barrier.
Yeah, because for so long, people have just carried that idea around, that girls don't enter sports, or they don't excel or whatever.
Well, and now they have the new STEM programs and, it's like, come on, get the girls in there. Once again, we have those social constructs though. And I see that in my practice. Mm-hmm. You're a girl, so you're not really into the math and the sciences, your arts and reading and language. And there's still some of that goes on.
Mm-hmm. Even if it's not verbal, people
Absolutely.
Just do it. They kind of push boys into one kind of thing and girls into another a lot of times, I think.
Mm-hmm. And then when we do that, it's hard for that person not to believe that's their place in life.
Yeah.
And anybody listening, maybe you can sit there and think of a time where you were told something, this is who you are. And you kind of maybe even stayed stuck there for a minute. Maybe you're still stuck there. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Your dad was this. Your dad was a teacher. Your granddaddy was a teacher. Everybody's a teacher. So you're going to be a teacher because that's a different one. That's a family thing. Yeah. But it's the same thing. And you're sitting there thinking, I just want to be in the ballet or whatever,
Right.
Then it's like, no, that's not going to happen. Do you see what I mean? The social constructs are internal to our home. So there's those, whether they're cultural or whatever that is. And then there's the construct of your community and maybe even your church, and then society itself and all of that other stuff. Mm-hmm. When I talk to people about body image or things like that, where did that come from? I don't know. You're supposed to look this way or you're supposed to, and that really messes people up.
Well, even I know that genetics plays some role in different things, but I think it's interesting that a lot of times you'll hear someone say they come by it honestly because it's a long line of my family has this.
It's in my blood.
Yeah. So if you believe that about yourself, of course, why wouldn't it be true?
And you know what? It's so interesting that you talked about that. I was just talking to one of my clients about genetics, and I said, The cool thing is, though, is that we have the ability to change things by our behaviors, what we eat, what we do, how active are we, what are we doing to contribute to our own life and our own health?
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about. What is that contribution that you do for yourself?
Right.
And how do you do it in a way when, once again, the social construct says, if you make it all about you, then you're being selfish, or you're being this, or you're being that. And I have a lot of women I have worked with over these many, many years. And a lot of times they always put themselves on the back burner. And no disrespect to the dads out there. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people, the women I'm talking about were specific. And they would often say, I would say like, well, what are you getting? Or what are you getting for yourself? Oh no, my kids need this, or my husband needs this. And oftentimes, they won't buy for themselves, or they won't do for themselves. And I asked one time, I said, why would you do this? And she goes, well, it's what you're supposed to do. And I said, I'm sorry, who made this rule? Where did this come from? And she goes, what do you mean? I said, once again, how do you feed from an empty plate? How do you give when you have nothing?
Exactly. It doesn't make any sense.
That's why we talk about this on this podcast, the importance of taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Because, oh my goodness, there's so much that people take on sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find out they don't even know why.
Exactly.
But yet it's a burden on them.
Yeah.
So they don't have that ability to have that sense of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a social construct.
Right. But it's so ingrained.
And it can be generational stuff. And, you're just there like, oh my goodness. I was talking to one of my clients, and, even like he said, he goes, it's like you go back home and the same person is on the same street corner. It's like they never left. It's like, how do you not want to be more or whatever? And I said, I don't know. Maybe they're happy on the street corner. I said, I don't know. He was talking about, and he goes, but I know them. And, and I said, I get that. And I said, I think the thing is because sometimes we're told, well, nobody in your family's ever gone to college. Education's not important. Go get a job, or whatever. Or everybody in your family goes to college and all you want is a job. It works both ways.
Mm-hmm. But you listen to it long enough, you'll really believe all those things about yourself. And then you basically paint yourself into a corner because you're not going to feel like that you can move in a different direction.
Well, and I think, one of the things I talk often with my clients about is labels. I always tell them, you're more than your diagnosis. You're more than, we're not. And to learn to start to embrace the whole entire person. And I would tell people there's good, bad, and ugly in all of us. We're not immune to it. We're not immune to being angry and yelling, doing all the other stupid stuff that people do. But the thing is that what do you learn from it? If you're doing the same behavior and you learn nothing, then you're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes, well, that's how everybody in my family's handled this, or once again, it becomes those constructs and people get stuck in these boxes.
Yeah.
And so we talk with people on this podcast that are breaking barriers, that are believing and following dreams.
Believing in themselves enough to make these changes, to step out, to have the courage.
And even to step out and talk about things like Bigfoot or UFOs or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that takes courage, because a lot of people, they're like, well, they're nuts.
How many times do you have people that will come in and see you and have said, I don't want you to think I'm crazy.
And then tell me this very interesting story that I would deem not psychotic or anything. And they're like, I don't know, you're experiencing something.
It seems to be like a supernatural experience.
I said, because it's not internal to you. So, we break that down and stuff. But yeah, please don't think I'm crazy. They're like, well, okay. But absolutely. Because their fear of talking about stuff and that. And they're like, it's an experience. It's neither good nor bad. It's not, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's not to be judged.
Right.
It just simply is. That's what we're talking about. On every podcast, it is always about being the best version of you and breaking down those barriers that are keeping you encased from following your dreams or for whatever it is. Yes. Big, small, it doesn't matter.
Because it's keeping you from moving forward and fulfilling your purpose and moving ahead and excelling at whatever it is that you're good at.
The other thing is, I always tell people, listen to yourself, listen to your gut. Mm-hmm. You know, oftentimes it really is there for a reason. And, you know, sometimes even there will be fear. And we talk about that in the podcast. Sometimes when we're the most afraid is when we need to take an action, when we're goal setting, because it's like, oh my, and you know, that was, it's like, oh my, and I kept saying, oh geez, I don't know if we should do this with the private practice. Here you were learning stuff you knew nothing about with insurance.
Yeah.
And credentialing. And then she got a side gig because she figured out credentialing for me, which that means I just can bill out insurances. So I get paneled with them. She figures it out. And then pretty soon the other clinicians, Christy, can you do this for me?
Will you help me with credentialing with these insurances?
So she got a little side gig there, you know, and people were asking her to help out with that and stuff like that. So she was learning a whole new thing, and that had to be scary.
It was, yeah, because I wanted to make sure that I was, you know, doing everything right and providing the right information and making the right connections and all of that. So it was a little nerve-wracking, but it was nice. And I mean, that was another thing was when you first got going with that company. I mean, we were just barely getting started, but it was making those connections and it was providing extra income and things like that. I mean, more little steps along the way.
One of the reasons we wanted to talk about this too is because we're far from knowing everything. We're still evolving. We're putting into practice all of these things and understanding that it didn't start out this way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I still feel like there's so much more room for improvement, but it's still, I feel like that we are at a much better place. And yes, it didn't happen overnight. It just slowly has morphed.
And I think another thing that I know is important is that I feel like we had a good foundation to start with. Mm-hmm. I mean, I really, you know, my family support, my parents, you know, and then of course I have 5 brothers and 5 sisters. So there's a lot, you know, we could play games together and have do teams. That was awesome. But even that, being in a system that big, you learn to be around people and talk about a lot of different personalities there. Oh my. But you learn to do that. So that for us, and it was very different for me because we talked about lots of things. We watched shows together and talked about them. We did certain things. Of course, we worked the fields together too. Mm-hmm. And then we covered for each other as well. That was part of that relationship building. I am immensely grateful for my upbringing and for my family. I really am.
Right.
And I know for you, you know, one of the things, your dad and his work.
My dad had a really strong work ethic and he was a hard worker. In my growing up years, he was a plumber, an electrician, and then a janitor. And he was always cleaning up. It didn't matter where he went. He would clean the whole town, picking up trash everywhere. He just had a way about him that he wanted things to look nice. He wanted things to be good for people. And, you know, I mean, everybody has their faults, but he was a good man. I appreciate my upbringing. I really do. It was a happy home.
And you were more of a church family too.
Yeah, I was.
Because your mom was very involved in the church, and sometimes she was drummer, sometimes she was.
Yeah, she played drums. She interpreted for the hearing impaired in the church, and she did a lot of things.
And was a minister in there too.
She was a minister, yeah.
So there's a lot of things, and I think when you learn gratitude, and then you get a step away, you really start to appreciate those things that you didn't realize were so great and wonderful in your life.
Yes.
Because you start to understand the value of them. The way this happens is when we take time, we really take time to take care of ourselves, to be selfish, if that's the word it is, or whatever, whatever that is. And to look in the mirror and know you are the best version of you at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the hope is that the next moment you get to be a better version of you and a stronger version, or whatever that version that you see yourself as. And we stop listening to those voices, those little naysayers.
Yeah.
You have to listen to them. But we do those things. And along the way, it is really amazing when you get to laugh with those people.
Yes.
Whoever they are, whoever comes into your life. If it's a stranger, you can sit and laugh with them for 5 minutes. Have gratitude for that, because it's a true moment. And we always talk about that because, I don't know, we just say stupid. We're just really goofy, for being honest.
Oftentimes talking movie quotes and things like that.
Yes. But sometimes, and it seems late at night when we should be going to sleep, we will find something and we can laugh and laugh and laugh.
It's the best feeling ever.
Yes. So make those moments, because those moments become a memory and you can always draw on those memories. There's just something really special about that.
Right.
But we wanted to take this opportunity to share with you a little bit more about who we are and why we're at the place we are, why this is important for us, because we appreciate every single person along the line in our journey, and that we're grateful for them, and that if we can be that for anybody, and we always say, whether it's that one person, it doesn't matter to us. If somebody's listening and this resonates with them, then we're truly happy.
Yes.
And we are truly grateful.
And thank you for listening.
Yes, we greatly appreciate it. We hope that you guys have a wonderful, fantastic week and weekend. Enjoy. I will be enjoying a class reunion this year, and so grateful to the people who came together, to my friend Joe Dominguez, who really at the last minute came in and just was swooped in and really helped to make this happen. And for the people who are attending and all the help we had, it was great. And guess what? It's great because I get to go back and meet with these people who I had such a strong connection with, because these were my classmates from first grade to graduation, because I come from a very tiny school. So we all knew each other. So very excited about this weekend. Get to, I don't know, Christy gets to maybe learn stuff about me that, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. We'll keep you posted. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, and have a great week. And we will be back next week.
Bye.
Bye.